Autumn rain drummed against the windows of the apartment in Gangnam. Jeong Eun-ju, the 44-year-old wife of a well-known surgeon, gazed outside, trying to push away the heavy feeling of emptiness. Her husband stayed late in surgeries more and more often. The children had grown up and barely needed her. She herself was becoming a shadow in her own family. That day, Eun-ju decided to go through her husband's wardrobe. Memories flooded back. Once they had shared a single suit, dreaming of a house and a clinic. Now there were dozens of suits. She ran her hand over the expensive fabric and suddenly felt something in a pocket. First, a bill from the Shilla Hotel. 2 nights in a suite, champagne, dinner for 2, spa treatments for a couple. The date, exactly the week when Té Jun had sworn he was in Busan at a conference, too busy even to call. Her heart began to pound. But the next item was the real blow. A photograph. A girl with artificial beauty, large eyes, plump lips, a neat little nose, breasts beneath a tight top. On the back, a note, "Sweetheart, thank you for my new nose. Now I'm the most beautiful. Yours forever." So Eun-ju's knees buckled. She sat down right on the floor among the suits, clutching the photo. 18 years of marriage, 2 children, a life built together, and all of it erased by one girl younger than their daughter. Her husband's recent words echoed in her mind, "You've gained weight. You look older than the other doctors' wives." She had tried the gym, cosmetologists, expensive creams. But there were always younger women around him. And now she knew the truth. His smile, the lightness in his step, the late business trips, none of it was for her. The sound of the front door opening made her hastily shove the discovery into her purse. Té Jun walked into the bedroom, as usual immersed in a phone call. He was speaking English with some overseas colleague about a new liposuction technique. "Yes, I think this technology will revolutionize the industry," he said without even glancing at his wife. "We need to be the first in Korea to master it." When he ended the call, he finally noticed Eun-ju. "Oh, hi, darling. Didn't see you there. We'll have dinner late tonight. I still have a few important calls." "How was the conference in Busan?" she asked softly. Té Jun froze for a moment, then quickly regained his composure. "Excellent. Very informative. Lots of new contacts, promising technologies. A pity such events don't happen often." He headed to the bathroom, and Eun-ju noticed a new ease in his movements. When he thought she wasn't watching, a dreamy smile would cross his face, the kind she hadn't seen in years. Now she understood who that smile was for. For the next few days, Eun-ju lived in a fog. She went through her usual routines, cooked breakfast, saw the children off to school, met friends for lunch, went shopping. But everything happened automatically, while her mind kept circling back to that photograph. She studied it in detail. The girl was no older than 22 or 23. Professional makeup, expensive jewelry, elegant hairstyle, everything suggested she had a patron. And the word "appa" in the inscription, what younger women in Korea call older men, left no doubt about the nature of the relationship. Eun-ju tried to find information about this Min So-hee on social media, but without success. Either the girl was cautious, or Té Jun had asked her to be discreet. On Thursday morning she couldn't stand it anymore and decided to drive past her husband's clinic. Maybe she would see something suspicious, or maybe reassure herself that it was all in her imagination. The new beauty clinic was located in a prestigious medical complex in Gangnam. Sparkling glass and steel, marble floors, expensive furniture, everything spoke of success and prosperity. Eun-ju remembered well how she and her husband had planned the interior, chosen every detail, dreamed of the day the clinic would open. She parked across the street and watched. Patients came in an endless stream, mostly young women with bandaged noses, swollen faces after surgery. The beauty industry thrived in Korea, and Té Jun was one of its kings. Around noon she saw him. Té Jun stepped out of the clinic accompanied by a young woman. Even at a distance, Eun-ju recognized the face from the photo. Min So-hee was even prettier in real life, long hair cascading over her shoulders, a perfect figure, graceful movements. They sat down at a cafe across from the clinic, chatting animatedly, laughing. Té Jun was gallant and attentive, helped her sit, ordered food for her, leaned across the table to whisper something. That was how he had treated Eun-ju 20 years ago, when they had just met. After lunch they returned to the clinic together. So he walked in with confidence, as though the place belonged to her too. Several staff greeted her, showing she was no stranger there. Eun-ju drove home with a heavy heart. Now there was no doubt, her husband was cheating. The only question was how serious this relationship was. The answer came the next day. Té Jun announced he was leaving again, this time for a conference in Té Jun. "Darling, this is a very important event," he said over breakfast. "Colleagues from Japan and Singapore will be there. I might secure a contract for new equipment." "How long will you be away?" Eun-ju asked, trying to keep her voice casual. 2 nights. Maybe 3, if negotiations drag on. After he left, Eun-ju decided to act. She couldn't live in ignorance any longer. She put on makeup, chose her best dress, and drove to the neighborhood where, through acquaintances, she had learned Min So-hee's family lived. The plan was simple: find the girl and talk to her. Maybe it was just a frivolous fling that would end by itself. Or maybe So-hee didn't even know her appa had a family. She waited near the building for several hours until finally she saw a familiar figure. Min So-hee came out, accompanied by a middle-aged man who looked like her father. "So-hee, be careful," he said. "This man is 20 years older than you. Even if he's rich and famous, think about your future." "Don't worry, Dad," the girl replied. "Té Jun loves me. He promised we'd marry as soon as he divorces his wife." Eun-ju felt the ground slip away beneath her. So it wasn't just an affair. Her husband was already planning divorce and a new life. "But he has children," So-hee's father continued. "The kids are grown, they'll understand." "And his wife?" The girl sneered, "She's old and ugly." "She's over 40. What man would want to live with such a woman when he can be with me?" Those words cut deep. It meant Té Jun had discussed marriage with his mistress, had criticized his wife, promised to get rid of her. But the most shocking discovery was still ahead. As father and daughter walked toward a cafe, Eun-ju noticed the curve of So-hee's belly under her light coat. She was pregnant, 4 or 5 months, judging by the size. Eun-ju barely made it home. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't fit the key into the lock. Fragments of thoughts raced through her head: pregnant, divorce, old and ugly, we'll marry. She locked herself in the bedroom and, for the first time in years, cried for real. Not quietly, with restraint as society expected, but out loud, like a child. 18 years of marriage, all her youth given to the family, the career she had given up for her husband and children, it was all collapsing at once. She remembered how she had helped Té Jun at the start of his career, handling paperwork, welcoming patients, creating a warm atmosphere at home for important guests. How she had turned down job offers to stay close to the family. How she had endured his indifference in recent years, hoping it was just a temporary crisis. Meanwhile, he had been planning a new life with a girl barely 5 years older than their daughter. Té Jun returned from his business trip on Sunday evening. He was in high spirits, even humming to himself as he unpacked in the bathroom. Eun-ju watched him, thinking how well he could lie. How many such trips had there been in recent months? How were the negotiations? She asked. "Excellent." Té Jun smiled. "I think we'll get that contract. It'll take the clinic to a whole new level." He came over and even kissed her cheek, the first time in weeks. "By the way, darling, my mother is coming for dinner on Wednesday. Make something special." The mother-in-law did indeed arrive on Wednesday, just as planned. The elderly woman loved these family dinners when everyone gathered around the big table. The children shared school stories, Té Jun spoke about work, and she gave wise advice to all. Min-ji was helping her mother set the table. The beautiful 17-year-old girl looked very much like Eun-ju at her age, the same delicate features, graceful figure, intelligent eyes. "Mom, you look kind of sad today," the daughter noticed. "Did something happen?" "Everything's fine, darling. I'm just a little tired." Ji-ho, as usual, arrived late to the table, tearing himself away from his computer at the last minute. The 15-year-old boy was going through a rough adolescence, sullen, often arguing with his parents, especially his father. When the whole family had gathered, Té Jun stood up from the table. He looked solemn, as if preparing to deliver an important speech. "I have an announcement for the family," he began, his voice completely free of worry or regret. Eun-ju already knew what he was about to say, but she still wasn't prepared for the cynicism with which her husband uttered the next words. "I've made a decision about our marriage. We're getting a divorce. I'll file the papers next week." Min-ji dropped her chopsticks. Ji-ho froze with his mouth open. The mother-in-law clutched her chest. "Té Jun, what are you saying?" "Mom, this is an adult decision," he answered coldly. "I've thought about it for a long time and realized that our marriage has run its course. Eun-ju and I have become strangers." "Dad," whispered Min-ji, "but why? We're a happy family." Té Jun looked at his daughter with something like regret, but quickly regained his composure. "Min-ji, you're a grown girl now. You should understand that sometimes love ends between adults. Your mother," he cast a cold glance at his wife, "is too old and dull for a man in my position." "Té Jun," the mother-in-law cried. "How can you say such things about the woman who bore your children? Who gave you the best years of her life? Mom, with all respect for your age, this is a matter between adults. I have a certain status in society. A successful surgeon needs a wife who matches that status. Young, beautiful, someone who can impress important clients and colleagues." Ji-ho jumped up from the table. "Dad, what are you talking about? Mom is the most beautiful woman I know. Ji-ho-ya, you're too young to understand the complexities of adult relationships. Your mother was a good wife and mother, but now I need to move on." Finally, Eun-ju spoke, her voice surprisingly calm. "So Min-so-hee is that moving on you're talking about?" Té Jun turned pale. He clearly hadn't expected his wife to know the mistress's name. "How do you know that name?" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that you're planning to marry a pregnant girl young enough to be your daughter." The word pregnant sounded like thunder. The children stared at their father in horror and confusion. "Dad," Ji-ho said slowly, "you have another woman? And she's pregnant?" "Ji-ho, adult life is complicated. Sometimes people don't meet their true love right away." "True love?" The boy exploded with rage. "And what about Mom? Was she fake love? And me and Min-ji, are we mistakes?" "Of course not. You're my children, I love you." "No!" Ji-ho shouted. "You're a liar and a traitor. I don't want a father like you." He ran from the room, slamming the door. Min-ji was quietly crying, and the mother-in-law shook her head. "Té Jun, I raised you like my own son. I never thought you capable of such meanness. How could you trade a woman like Eun-ju for some little girl?" "Mom, I didn't trade. I just realized I want to be happy. So he is young, beautiful, she admires me, supports my ambitions. And Eun-ju didn't support you? Who helped you build the clinic? Who handled your paperwork when you were just starting out? Who raised your children, created a warm home?" "That was long ago," he waved dismissively. "People change. I don't want to spend the rest of my life with a woman who only reminds me of the past. I want to build the future." Eun-ju rose from the table. "Then build it. But without us." 2 weeks later, Eun-ju moved into a modest 3-room apartment in the Mapo district. The move was painful not only emotionally but physically. She had to transport an entire life in pieces, leaving behind the luxurious house, the expensive furniture, the paintings they had once bought together in happier times. The lawyer warned her that under Korean family law, the husband often kept the greater part of shared property, especially if he had a successful business and the wife hadn't been officially employed. The house in Gangnam, the clinic, the luxury cars, the bank accounts, almost everything stayed with Té Jun. Eun-ju received only a small settlement and child support until the children reached adulthood. Unfortunately, your husband prepared very well for the divorce, the lawyer explained. Many assets are in his name or in the clinic's. It'll be difficult to prove your contribution to the business. And the children? The children will stay with you, but your husband has visitation rights. He is also obliged to pay alimony. The new apartment was 10 times smaller than the old house. 3 rooms, a small kitchen, a single bathroom. The windows looked not onto a garden but a noisy street. But it was theirs, only theirs with the children. The worst part was social alienation. Friends from the elite circle she had known for years suddenly stopped answering her calls. Some were openly cold. Eun-ju, you understand this is awkward. We were family friends, and now Té Jun is our business partner. It's inconvenient to maintain ties with his ex-wife. She was no longer invited to the social events she had once attended as the wife of a prominent surgeon. Her social status evaporated overnight, like morning mist. Min-ji took the divorce hardest. The smart, sensitive girl knew the family was broken forever, and she blamed her father. But even more, their financial situation weighed on her. Mom, I feel so ashamed in front of my classmates, she admitted one day. Everyone knows we moved to Mapo. And John Min-hee said her mom told her you'd become a divorcee without a penny to her name. Min-ji, don't listen to gossip. We'll manage. But how? We barely have any money. Dad's alimony is nothing. I want to get into a good university, but that takes money for tutors. Eun-ju hugged her daughter. Everything will be fine. I'll figure something out. But deep down, she didn't know what that something could be. Her economics degree was 20 years old and felt hopelessly outdated. Who would hire a 44-year-old woman with no work experience? Ji-ho reacted differently to the divorce. At first he was angry at his mother, blaming her for the family's collapse. Mom, why couldn't you keep the family together? Other women know how to hold on to their husbands. Maybe if you had taken better care of yourself, exercised more, been more interesting. Those words cut like knives into Eun-ju's heart. She knew a 15-year-old boy couldn't grasp the complexity of the situation, but hearing this from her own son was unbearably painful. Ji-ho, she said quietly, relationships between adults are complicated. Sometimes people just stop loving each other. But Dad said you became boring and old. Maybe if you had changed. Your father fell in love with another woman. That was his choice, not my fault. The boy frowned, unwilling to listen. It was easier for him to blame his mother than admit his heroic father was just another cheater. The first months in the new apartment were the hardest in Eun-ju's life. At night she lay awake, replaying the past years, trying to pinpoint where everything had gone wrong. Maybe she hadn't been a good enough wife? Maybe she should have cared more about her looks, focused less on children and home. But in the morning, looking at herself in the mirror, she didn't see an old and boring woman. She saw someone simply exhausted from betrayal. Her eyes still held fire, her movements grace, her smile warmth. It was just that Té Jun had stopped noticing long ago. A month after the move, Eun-ju realized that sitting at home and pitying herself was an unaffordable luxury. The money was vanishing at a frightening speed, and the alimony barely covered the essentials. Despite her mother's prohibitions, Min-ji secretly took a part-time job at a cafe after school. The smart girl understood how dire the family's situation was and wanted to help. Mom, I'm not a child, she said when Eun-ju found out about her job. I'm already 17, and I want to contribute to our family budget. But you need to prepare for your university entrance exams. I'll study in the evenings. Mom, I'm not ashamed to work. I'd be ashamed to sit back while you carry everything on your own. Watching her daughter, Eun-ju realized that she had to set an example. She couldn't let her children see her as weak and helpless. She started looking for a job but quickly collided with the harsh reality of the Korean labor market. Employers openly told her that 43 was far too old for a beginner. Her education seemed outdated, and her lack of formal work experience puzzled them. "What have you been doing all these years?" they asked at interviews. "Raising children, helping my husband with his business, managing the household." "That doesn't count as work experience," the recruiters replied coldly. After yet another humiliating rejection, Eun-ju sat down in a cafe near the office where her failed interview had just taken place and ordered coffee. At the next table, two women about her age were discussing cosmetics. "You know, Jean, I spent a fortune on that new Korean brand they advertise on TV," one of them said. "But it didn't work at all. My skin is as dry as ever." "I have the same problem," her friend replied. "All these Korean brands make products for 20-year-old girls. What about us? We have completely different needs, different skin, different problems." "Exactly. I'm 41, I've got my first wrinkles, pigmentation spots after childbirth. And the stores sell creams for prevention of aging." Prevention? The changes are already here. And those young salesgirls look at us like we're dinosaurs. They recommend the same things they give to their peers. Listening to their conversation, Eun-ju suddenly felt a light bulb switch on in her mind. These women were voicing exactly the problem she herself had faced in recent years. The Korean cosmetics industry was geared toward the young, ignoring the needs of mature women. And she knew this problem from the inside out. For the past 20 years, she had studied cosmetic procedures, trying to preserve her youth and beauty. She knew all the nuances of mature skin care, understood the psychology of women her age, their insecurities and hopes. That evening at home, she kept thinking about the conversation she had overheard. Maybe her life experience wasn't a weakness, but a strength? Maybe what made her unsuitable for most employers could actually be her advantage. The next day, while flipping through the classifieds, she spotted a small ad. Cosmetics company Natural Beauty is looking for a sales consultant. Requirements: experience using cosmetics, understanding of clients' needs, good communication skills. Her heart skipped a beat. This was exactly what she had been looking for. The interview at Natural Beauty was nothing like her previous ones. The company was located in a small office in the Hongdae district, far from prestigious business centers. The interior was simple but cozy, light walls, fresh flowers, soft lighting. The owner, Lee Ji-yeon, was a 35-year-old woman with tired but kind eyes. She herself had once gone through a painful divorce and knew what it meant to start life over alone. "Tell me about yourself," she said, seating Eun-ju in a comfortable chair and offering her tea. "My name is Jeong Eun-ju, I'm 43. I recently divorced and I'm looking for work to support my children," Eun-ju replied honestly. "I don't have experience in sales, but I'm eager to learn." "Why cosmetics?" "Because I know how it feels when someone tells you you're too old and uninteresting. I know how hard it is to find skincare that truly works for mature skin. And I want to help women like me discover their beauty." Ji-yeon studied her face closely. "Do you use cosmetics yourself?" "Yes, for the past 20 years I've tried hundreds of products. I've studied ingredients, gone to cosmetologists, read specialized literature. At first, it was just to look good for my husband, then it became a habit, and now it's a necessity to feel beautiful for myself." "And what do you think of our products?" Eun-ju pulled a small tube of cream from her bag. "I bought your night cream for skin restoration after 35. I've been using it for a week. It really works, my skin feels firmer, fine lines are less noticeable. But I think you're underestimating your product." "What do you mean?" "You market it as anti-aging. But women my age don't want to look younger, we want to look beautiful at our age. That's not the same thing. Jeong leaned forward, intrigued. Go on. Young girls buy cosmetics to experiment, to follow trends. But we buy them to solve specific problems. We don't need promises of eternal youth, we need real results. And we need consultants who understand our struggles not from textbooks, but from personal experience. When Eun-ju finished speaking, the room fell silent. Jeong stared out the window thoughtfully, then turned back to her. When can you start? Excuse me? You're hired. When can you start working? Seriously? But you didn't even ask about my work experience, references. Eun-ju SSI, over the last month I've seen 20 candidates. All young, beautiful, with sales experience. But none of them understood our product the way you did after just 1 week of use. I don't need a salesperson, I need someone who can be the bridge between our company and our clients. Walking out of the office with an employment contract in her hands, Eun-ju felt, for the first time in months, something close to joy. The salary was modest, far less than what her family used to spend just on entertainment. But it was her own money, earned by her own effort. The children reacted differently to the news. Min-ji was delighted. Mom, I'm so proud of you. You didn't give up. Ji-ho was more reserved. What will Dad say when he finds out you're working as a saleswoman? Your father now lives his own life, and we live ours, Eun-ju answered calmly. His opinion no longer matters to me. Working at Natural Beauty became a true revelation for Eun-ju. She discovered that the life experience considered a flaw in other interviews was, in fact, her greatest strength here. On her first day at work, a woman of about 45 approached her with tearful eyes. Miss, please help me. My husband left me for a younger lover. I want to be beautiful again, but I don't know where to start. I feel hopelessly old and ugly. Eun-ju's colleagues, young women in their early 20s, froze. They had no idea how to speak to a crying middle-aged woman. But Eun-ju knew exactly how this client felt. Please, have a seat, she said gently. Tell me about your skin, about the problems that trouble you most. They talked for an hour and a half. Eun-ju didn't just recommend cosmetics, she listened to the woman's story, gave her support, explained that beauty at 45 could be no less attractive than at 25, only different. You know, the client said as she left with a sizable purchase, I didn't plan to buy this much. But you're the first person who truly understood me. I'll definitely come back. And she did. And she brought her friends, her neighbors, her colleagues. Within a month, Eun-ju had a loyal clientele of middle-aged women who specifically asked for her. Ji-yeon watched her new employee's success with admiration. Eun-ju, your first month's sales have surpassed those of our top consultants. How do you do it? I don't sell cosmetics, Eun-ju replied. I help women feel beautiful. That's not the same thing. She truly didn't just sell products. To each client, she listened like a psychologist, chose products like a professional cosmetologist, supported them like a best friend. Women left her not only with purchases but with higher self-esteem. You know, one regular client said, after my divorce I thought my life was over. But Eun-ju explained to me that at 42, life is just beginning. And I believed her. By the end of her second month, Eun-ju's sales were the highest not only in their store but in the entire natural beauty chain. Ji-yeon realized she had found not just a good employee but someone who could change the whole philosophy of the company. I have a proposal, she said one evening. Would you like to help develop a separate cosmetic line especially for women over 40? I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I didn't know how to approach it. Eun-ju's eyes lit up. What if we create not just cosmetics for mature women, but a whole philosophy of beauty without age limits? What do you mean? Most brands tell women to look younger. But why should youth be the only standard of beauty? A mature woman can be beautiful in her own way, with experience, wisdom, confidence. We need to highlight those qualities, not hide them. Ji-yeon listened with growing excitement. And how do you envision this line? Let's call it Second Spring. Cosmetics for women who aren't afraid of their age but proud of it. Products that don't promise to give back 20 years, but help them look magnificent at any age. They talked late into the night, discussing the concept, product names, packaging, marketing strategy. For the first time in many months, Eun-ju felt truly alive and needed. At home, the children watched their mother's transformation with surprise. The apathy and confusion of the first weeks after the divorce had disappeared. Eun-ju's eyes now shone with enthusiasm she hadn't shown in years. Mom is completely different now, Ming-ji said to her brother. Yesterday she sat at the computer until 1 a.m, sketching something, reading articles about cosmetics. Ji-ho nodded. He no longer felt angry at his mother, on the contrary, he began to help her. He translated scientific articles on cosmetology from English, helped her design presentations. You know, he admitted to his sister, I thought Mom would break after the divorce. But instead, she's gotten stronger. The development of the new cosmetic line took 6 months. Eun-ju threw herself into studying the needs of mature women. She conducted client surveys, researched international practices, consulted dermatologists and cosmetologists. The core principle of Second Spring was revolutionary for the Korean market. Instead of fighting age, it encouraged embracing it and highlighting the dignity of mature beauty. We won't promise that our cream will make a woman 20 years younger, Eun-ju explained to the development team. We'll promise that she'll look wonderful at 40, 50, 60. The formulas were designed with the features of Asian skin at different stages of aging in mind. The packaging was elegant but not flashy, golden and beige tones instead of bright youthful colors. But the most important part was the positioning. Instead of photos of 20-year-old models, the ads featured images of beautiful women between 35 and 55, successful businesswomen, actresses, writers. Beauty has no age. It has depth, became the slogan of the new line. Ji-yeon was amazed at Eun-ju's enthusiasm and professionalism. Where did you learn all this? You speak like a marketer with 20 years of experience. I just know from the inside what our clients feel, Eun-ju replied. When a man tells you that you've become old and boring, you begin to understand very well what women your age truly want. The presentation of Second Spring was held in a small hall of a shopping center in Gangnam. About 50 women came, mostly Eun-ju's loyal clients and their friends. The average age of the audience was 40 to 45. Eun-ju stepped onto the stage in an elegant black suit, and the hall fell silent. She looked confident and beautiful, nothing like the penniless divorcee her former friends had called her. Dear women, she began, how many times have you been told that you must look younger? That age is something to be hidden and fought against? The hall hummed in agreement. I want to tell you something else, age is not the enemy, it's an achievement. Every year we live gives us experience, wisdom, self-understanding. Why should we be ashamed of such wealth? The applause was long and sincere. The women recognized their own thoughts and feelings in Eun-ju's words. Second Spring is cosmetics for women who don't want to seem younger. We want to be beautiful at our age. We want our experience and wisdom to be reflected in our beauty. After the presentation, the women practically stormed the product stand. The entire stock prepared for a month sold out in one evening. This is incredible, Ji-yeon whispered, watching the line of customers. I've never seen such a reaction to a new product. And Eun-ju stood aside, watching the happy faces of women who had finally found cosmetics made just for them. In that moment, she realized she had found her calling. While Eun-ju was building a new life, her ex-husband's affairs grew worse. Min So-hee, who now lived in a luxurious house in Gangnam, turned out not to be the ideal life partner Té Jun had dreamed of. Pregnancy didn't make her more mature or responsible. On the contrary, she became even more spoiled and demanding. Every day brought new requests, expensive designer maternity clothes, costly jewelry, weekly spa visits. Té Jun, all my friends envy my jewelry, she said, trying on yet another necklace worth several million won. And Minju showed off her new Louis Vuitton bag. I need one too. Sohia, we're spending far too much money, Té Jun tried to object. Maybe we should be more reasonable with our expenses. What, are you being stingy with me? She pouted, her eyes filling with tears. I'm pregnant with your child. Don't I deserve the best? And Té Jun gave in. He had grown used to Eun-ju being sensible and frugal, never asking for anything extra. So he was the complete opposite. She believed a man should fulfill her every desire. But worse than her spending was her complete inability to help with the clinic's business. For years, Eun-ju had been his right hand, handling paperwork, greeting important clients, keeping track of schedules and key dates. So he had no interest in such things. Honey, I'm bored with your work, she declared. I'm young and beautiful, I want to enjoy life, not sit in a dull office. Without Eun-ju's organizational skills, Té Jun's business began to collapse. He started forgetting important meetings, confusing patient appointments, losing crucial documents. His irritability spread to the staff, and several experienced employees resigned. Dr. Kim has become a completely different person, the nurses whispered. He used to be so organized and attentive. Now he's always nervous, always making mistakes. Disaster was inevitable, and it struck 6 months after the divorce. Té Jun performed a rhinoplasty on the daughter of an influential businessman. The procedure should have been routine, but something went wrong. Perhaps he was too distracted by domestic troubles. Perhaps he was worn out by Sohee's constant demands. She even called him during surgeries. But the result was catastrophic. The girl developed a severe infection that led to nasal deformation. The patient's family sued. The story hit the press with a sensational headline: Famous surgeon disfigures businessman's daughter. The clinic's reputation was destroyed in a single week. What are we going to do? Sohee cried hysterically, scrolling through the news. Everyone's saying you're a terrible doctor. And I'm about to give birth, I need money. I don't know, Té Jun admitted. Maybe it will blow over, maybe people will forget. But people didn't forget. Clients began canceling appointments en masse. Several major customers demanded refunds for prepaid procedures. Within a month, the clinic's income dropped tenfold. During this time, Sohee gave birth to a son. Té Jun hoped motherhood would make her more responsible and understanding. Instead, she hired an expensive nanny and continued her lifestyle of entertainment, shopping, and spa visits. Té Jun, I need to recover after childbirth, she announced a month after giving birth. I want to go to America, to a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. He has a revolutionary tummy tuck procedure for post-pregnancy. We don't have money for such trips, he replied wearily. What do you mean, no money? You're a famous doctor. Sohee, you don't understand. After that scandal, the clinic is barely operating. We're drowning in debt, we might go bankrupt. Then borrow. Sell something. I'm not going to live with a sagging belly. Conflicts became more frequent and more bitter. So he threatened to take the child and move in with her parents if Té Jun didn't meet her demands. And he couldn't understand how the tender, admiring girl he once knew had turned into such a spoiled and demanding woman. The last straw came during a dinner with former colleagues. They discussed recent news in the medical community, and someone mentioned Eun-ju's presentation at a beauty psychology conference. Your ex-wife caused quite a stir, one of the doctors said. Her talk on the impact of self-esteem on perception of appearance was brilliant. What a smart, profound woman. How could you let her go, Té Jun? Yes, and I heard her cosmetic line is a hit among middle-aged women, added another. She's created an entire philosophy of beauty without age limits. That night, for the first time in 3 years, Té Jun looked honestly at his life. His clinic was on the verge of bankruptcy, his young wife cared only about herself and spending, his children barely spoke to him. And the woman he had once dismissed as old and boring had become a successful businesswoman and a respected expert. Meanwhile, the success of Second Spring surpassed all expectations. In its first year, sales increased 15-fold. The line became one of the most popular among Korean women over 35. The secret of success lay not only in the quality of the products but also in the revolutionary marketing approach. Eun-ju rejected traditional advertising with young models. Instead, the campaigns featured attractive middle-aged women, successful entrepreneurs, famous actresses, writers, doctors. "We don't sell the dream of youth," Eun-ju explained in business magazine interviews. "We sell confidence in your beauty at any age." Second Spring advertising was built on real stories. Women shared how they had found the strength to start anew after divorce, how they had built careers later in life, how they had learned to value themselves regardless of others' opinions. Beauty has no age. It has character. The company's new slogan appeared on billboards all over Seoul. 18 months after launching Second Spring, Jeong offered Eun-ju full partnership. "You didn't just create a cosmetic line, you created a movement. Women buy our products not only for beauty but for the philosophy behind them." By that time, Eun-ju had saved a modest sum from selling her jewelry and setting aside part of her salary. She invested it in the business, becoming co-owner of the company. Her children watched her success with pride. Min-ji, who had entered a prestigious university to study economics, often told her classmates about her mother's career. "My mom is living proof that life can change completely at any age. 3 years ago she was a housewife, and now her interviews are published in business magazines." Ji-ho, who had developed an interest in programming, supported the company with IT solutions. He created a mobile app with skincare advice and an online store for e-commerce. "Mom, you've become my hero," he confessed one day. "I used to think success was only for young people. But you proved that what really matters isn't age, it's determination and persistence." By the end of its second year, Second Spring had become the #1 brand among Korean women over 35. Eun-ju was invited to speak at conferences, appear on television shows, and write articles for magazines. She wrote a book titled Never Too Late to Start Again, in which she told her own story and shared the experiences of other women who had managed to radically change their lives in midlife. The book became a bestseller and was translated into several languages. "The main idea of my book is simple," Eun-ju explained in an interview. "A crisis is not the end, it's an opportunity. When the old life collapses, a chance arises to build a new, better one." At the business conference Innovations in the Korean Economy, Eun-ju met a man who changed her idea of what a relationship between a man and a woman could be. Park Min-woo was a 46-year-old IT company owner specializing in creating online platforms for small businesses. He was a widower. He had lost his wife to cancer 4 years earlier and was raising 2 teenage children. After Eun-ju's presentation on the psychology of consumer behavior among mature women, a tall man with kind eyes and graying temples approached her. "Your talk was very deep and moving," he said. "My late wife always complained that the beauty industry ignored women her age. She would have loved your philosophy." "Thank you for your kind words," Eun-ju replied. "Do you work in the beauty industry?" "No, I'm in IT. But I was impressed by your marketing approach. You created not just a product, but a whole community of like-minded women." They spoke until late in the evening. Min-woo told her about his work, about how difficult it was to balance business and raising children after his wife's death. Eun-ju was struck by his gentleness, attention to detail, and ability to listen. "You know," he said at the end of the evening, "I have experience building online sales platforms. Perhaps we could meet again? I'd like to learn more about your business and maybe suggest some IT solutions." Eun-ju hesitated. After her divorce, she hadn't thought about new relationships, especially with men. The wound of Té Jun's betrayal had not yet fully healed. "I understand your hesitation," Min-woo said softly, noticing her doubt. "To be honest, I'm not ready for a serious relationship either." But I see in you an interesting business partner and, I hope, a good person. Maybe we can start with friendship? All right, she agreed. But only as business colleagues. Min-woo smiled. Of course. Though I must admit, I rarely meet women with such depth of thought and strength of character. Business meetings with Min-woo gradually became one of the most pleasant parts of Eun-ju's life. He helped her create a professional online store for Second Spring, developed a CRM system for managing the client base, and built a mobile app with personalized skincare recommendations. But even more important was the moral support he gave her. Min-woo listened carefully to her plans and ideas, offered wise advice, and never tried to dominate or belittle her achievements. You know, he once said over coffee at their favorite cafe near the office, before she passed, my wife told me something very important, Min-woo-ya, if you ever meet a woman who makes you want to become a better man, don't let her slip away. Eun-ju felt her heartbeat quicken. She hadn't heard such words from a man in a long time. Min-woo, I'm not ready for a serious relationship, she admitted honestly. After the divorce, it's hard for me to trust men. I understand, and I won't rush you, he answered gently. I just want you to know, you are an extraordinary woman. Your ex-husband was blind if he couldn't see the treasure he had. Gradually, Min-woo became part of their family life. He didn't try to replace the children's father but was a kind and understanding adult friend. Ji-ho grew especially fond of him after Min-woo gave him a professional programming computer and became his mentor in IT. Mom, I like Uncle Min-woo, the boy admitted. He doesn't yell, doesn't lecture, doesn't compare me to other kids. You can talk to him about anything. Min-ji also warmed to him. He's nothing like Dad. Uncle Min-woo never says mean things and always takes an interest in us, not out of duty, but sincerely. Her mother-in-law, who regularly visited the grandchildren, approved of the family's new friend. Eun-ju, this man looks at you with such respect and warmth. It's long past time to forget the past and start thinking about the future. After 6 months of friendship, Min-woo finally spoke about his feelings. Eun-ju, I know I promised only friendship. But I can't hide it anymore, you've become the most important person in my life. I'm in love with you. Eun-ju sat in silence, struggling with conflicting emotions. On the one hand, she felt something more than friendship for him. On the other hand, the fear of new relationships was still strong. I need time to think, she said. Of course. I'll wait as long as it takes. Just don't let me disappear from your life. By its third year, Second Spring had expanded beyond Korea. The company opened branches in Japan and Singapore, and soon received offers from distributors in Europe and the United States. Eun-ju became a recognized expert in marketing to mature audiences. She was invited to speak at international conferences, and her business model was featured in leading economic journals worldwide. The phenomenon of Second Spring lies in the fact that Jeong Eun-ju found a niche ignored by major market players, wrote Harvard Business Review. She proved that mature women are not only solvent but also a loyal audience, willing to pay premium prices for products that truly meet their needs. In interviews with European journalists, Eun-ju explained her brand's philosophy. In Western culture, women over 40 often feel invisible. In Eastern culture, outdated. We offer a third path, to be beautiful at your age, with your own experience and your own wisdom. The success of the business brought not only financial stability but also public recognition. Eun-ju received the Entrepreneur of the Year award from the Korean Business Association and became an honorary lecturer at several universities. Min-ji, now a third-year economics student, proudly told her classmates, "My mom is living proof that success doesn't depend on age." At 43, she started her career from scratch, and now her company operates in 10 countries. Ji-ho, who had enrolled in a technical university for programming, developed several innovative IT solutions for his mother's company. Mom taught me the most important thing: if you believe in your idea, neither age nor circumstances are an obstacle. You just have to work and never give up. Meanwhile, Té Jun's life had become a nightmare. The clinic was closed after multiple lawsuits, and his personal assets were seized for debts. The house in Gangnam had to be sold to pay creditors. So he, who had initially attracted him with her youth and beauty, revealed her true nature. Once it became clear the money was gone, she began searching for a new benefactor. Té Jun, I can't live in poverty, she declared one morning. I've had an offer from a Korean-American businessman. He's willing to provide for me and the child. So you can't take my son. This is only temporary, I'll find a way to restore the business. With what? She scoffed. You're bankrupt, no one will hire you as a doctor after all those scandals. But David is offering me a mansion in Los Angeles, a car, financial support. I'd be a fool to refuse. A week later she packed her things and flew to America, taking her 2-year-old son. Té Jun was left alone in a rented studio apartment, burdened with debts and a ruined reputation. He tried to reconnect with Min-ji and Ji-ho, but the children were cold and distant. Dad, you destroyed our family for a woman who left you at the first sign of trouble, Min-ji said during one of their rare meetings. And Mom, whom you called old and boring, built an international business. What do you think we're supposed to feel? Ji-ho was even harsher. You said Mom didn't match your status. And what's your status now? An unemployed bankrupt abandoned by his young wife? The most painful blow came when Té Jun saw Eun-ju on television. She was receiving the International Businesswoman of the Year award and looked stunning, elegant, confident, radiant. This award symbolizes not only my personal journey, she said in the interview, but the opportunities available to every woman who dares to believe in herself. Age is not an obstacle, it's a resource. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Next to Eun-ju sat an elegant man who gazed at her with open admiration. Té Jun recognized him, Park Min-woo, the man he had heard about as his ex-wife's new partner. When Té Jun realized there was no way to restore his former life, he made a decision that would have seemed unthinkable 3 years earlier. He would ask Eun-ju for forgiveness. On a cold spring morning, Té Jun stood at the gates of an elegant 2-story house. He had changed a lot over the years, thinner, grayer, his face lined with the marks of stress. His once expensive clothes now looked worn. Eun-ju opened the door herself. She wore an elegant beige loungewear set, her hair neatly styled, light makeup enhancing her natural beauty. In her eyes shone the calm of a woman who had found her place in life. Eun-ju, Té Jun began, his voice trembling. May I come in? She silently stepped aside, letting him into the house. The interior radiated warmth and tranquility. Every detail spoke of love and taste. On the walls hung family photos, the children's diplomas, Eun-ju's awards, and paintings by contemporary Korean artists. Beautiful home, Té Jun muttered, looking around. Thank you. What do you want, Té Jun? Her voice was even, without anger, but also without warmth. Polite, yet distant, as if addressing a stranger. Té Jun sat down in a chair without waiting for an invitation, and for the first time in years she saw him cry. Not the restrained tears of pain or resentment, but the full weeping of despair. Eun-ju, I made a terrible mistake. So he took my son and went to America with another man. The clinic is bankrupt, the house sold for debts. I have nothing left. And what do you want me to say? Her question was simple, but without the slightest trace of pity. That you forgive me. That we can start over. I finally see what a wonderful wife you were. How blind and foolish I was. Eun-ju sat across from him, arms crossed. Her posture was calm but closed. Té Jun, 3 years ago you told me I was too old and boring for a successful man. That I didn't match your status. Do you remember those words? I was a fool, I didn't know what I was saying. No, you were brutally honest. Back then, you spoke exactly what you believed. Now that you're desperate, you suddenly remember my virtues. Té Jun slid from the chair onto his knees. Please, give me another chance. I'll be different, I've changed. I'll value you, love you, never hurt you again. You've changed because you had no choice, she replied calmly. I've changed because I learned my worth. Do you see the difference? At that moment, an elegant silver car pulled up to the house. A man stepped out, carrying a bouquet of white roses and a small envelope. Té Jun recognized Park Min-woo, the man he had seen next to Eun-ju at televised ceremonies. Eun-ju, sorry I'm late, Min-woo said as he entered. The meeting with investors ran long. These are theater tickets for tomorrow's musical premiere. Only then did he notice Té Jun. Oh, excuse me, I didn't know you had company. Té Jun, this is Park Min-woo, my business partner and friend, Eun-ju introduced them. Min-woo, this is my ex-husband. Min-woo politely nodded and extended his hand. A pleasure to meet you. Eun-ju has told me about her past. Reluctantly, Té Jun shook the offered hand. He saw the warmth and respect in their eyes as they looked at each other, a look he hadn't seen in hers for many years, perhaps not since the early days of their marriage. Min-woo helped me build an international sales network, Eun-ju explained. Without his support, Second Spring wouldn't be what it is today. And he makes wonderful Italian pasta, she added with a smile Té Jun hadn't seen in ages. Té Jun, Eun-ju said calmly, rising from her chair, you destroyed my old life, but because of that I built a new one, a much better one. I now know my worth and will never settle for less. But we were a family. We have children, memories. We share children, and I'll never stop you from seeing them if you behave with dignity. But we stopped being a family the moment you decided I wasn't good enough for your ambitions. Min-woo tactfully stepped toward the window, giving them space to finish the conversation. Even with his back turned, he radiated the calm confidence of a man who knew his place in her life. Eun-ju, I'll do anything. Té Jun pleaded. I can work as a simple doctor in your company, take a regular job, anything, just to be near you. She shook her head, almost with pity. Té Jun, love isn't about desperation and need. It's about choice. You chose So-hee when you had everything, money, status, opportunities. Now that you have nothing, you choose me. Do you see the difference? But I love you. I always loved you. No, Té Jun. You loved the convenience I gave you. You loved how I ran your household, helped with your business, raised your children, built your image. But me as a woman, as a person, you stopped seeing long ago. She walked to the door, making it clear the conversation was over. Goodbye, Té Jun. I sincerely hope you find yourself and become a better man. Build a new life. But not with me. That chapter is closed forever. Slowly, Té Jun rose from his knees. He knew he had lost, completely and irreversibly. In Eun-ju's eyes there was no hatred, no malice, only the calm resolve of someone who knows exactly what she wants from life. Is Min-woo a good man? He asked quietly. A very good man. He sees me as a partner, not a servant. He values my mind, not just my appearance. And most importantly, he chose me not out of desperation, but out of love. Té Jun finally understood he was defeated. In Eun-ju's gaze there was neither hatred nor pity, only the firm peace of a woman who knew her worth. Farewell, Té Jun, she said, moving toward the door. I wish you to find yourself and become better. But not with me. 6 months after that visit, Eun-ju's house hosted a festive family dinner. The occasion was the opening of a Second Spring branch in Tokyo, the company's first step toward international expansion. At the large table sat Eun-ju, her children, Min-woo, and his daughter Ji-yeon, a 17-year-old girl who had become friends with Min-ji. An unexpected guest was Eun-ju's mother-in-law, the first among Té Jun's relatives to decide to restore ties with her former daughter-in-law. Eun-ju, said the elderly woman, barely holding back tears. Forgive me for not supporting you back then. I was blind and thought only about my son's reputation. Mother, that's in the past, Eun-ju answered softly. What matters is what's happening now. On the living room wall hung the Entrepreneur of the Year award, next to a photo from the Tokyo office opening ceremony. Eun-ju, in an elegant black dress, was cutting the red ribbon, and beside her stood Min-woo, no longer just a business partner, but the man who had proposed to her 6 months earlier. When's the wedding? Asked Ji-yeon, Min-woo's daughter. I'm tired of calling you just uncle. Min-woo laughed. We're planning it for next fall. A small ceremony, just for close ones. Can I be the bridesmaid? Asked Min-ji. Of course, dear. You'll be the most beautiful bridesmaid in Seoul. Ji-ho, who had just turned 18, raised his glass of juice to Mom, who showed all of us that it's never too late to start a new life. A year after the Tokyo branch opened, Second Spring had become one of the most recognizable Korean brands in Asia. The company's products were sold in Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, and expansion into Europe was being planned. Eun-ju was invited to speak at international conferences, and her book was translated into 5 languages. The story of a Korean woman who built a cosmetics empire after a painful divorce inspired women worldwide. In an interview with a major American magazine, she said, "The most important discovery I made is that our value is not defined by the opinions of others, even those closest to us." When my husband told me I was too old and boring, for a moment I believed him. But then I realized he was describing not me, but his own fears and insecurities. The journalist asked her about the secret of Second Spring's success. "We don't try to make women younger," Eun-ju explained. "We help them become more confident in their own age and beauty. Maturity is not a flaw to hide, it's a strength to emphasize." Min-woo, who by then had become her husband, proudly watched her during the interview. Their wedding the previous fall had been modest but warm. The children from both their first marriages had quickly become one family, and Eun-ju's mother-in-law had officially asked Min-woo to call her mother. 2 years later, during a new product presentation at the Shilla Hotel, the very one whose bill had once destroyed her marriage, Eun-ju unexpectedly saw a familiar face among the journalists. Min So-hee looked tired and aged. Her once beautiful, surgically altered features had become even more artificial, and her eyes reflected disappointment and bitterness. After the presentation, So-hee approached Eun-ju. "Can we talk in private?" They stepped out onto the hotel terrace. Seoul sparkled with lights below, and the early summer air was cool. "I wanted to apologize," So-hee began, "for everything that happened." Eun-ju looked at her closely. "How are things in America?" "David left me after a year. Turned out he had a wife in Korea he never mentioned. I came back with my son a month ago. I'm working at a small beauty salon in Gangnam." "And Té Jun?" "We don't talk. He tried to revive his clinic, but his reputation is ruined forever. I heard he's working as a regular surgeon in a provincial hospital." Eun-ju nodded. She felt neither malice nor pity, just calm understanding that everyone receives what they deserve in life. "So-hee, I don't hold any grudge against you," she said. "We all make choices, and we all live with their consequences. You helped me realize that I am worth far more than I ever thought. You've become so strong and beautiful. At 46, you look better than I did at 26. It's not about age," Eun-ju smiled. "It's about finally learning to love myself." By its 5th year, Second Spring had become the largest Asian manufacturer of cosmetics for mature women. The company opened a research center developing innovative formulas tailored to the needs of Asian skin at different ages. Eun-ju was nominated for Woman of the Year by Korea's leading business magazine. On the day of the ceremony, her whole family gathered to support her. Min-ji, studying international business at a prestigious university, looked proudly at her mother. "Mom, you've been my role model all these years. I want to build a career just like you." Ji-ho, studying programming and helping the company with IT development, added, "Remember how Dad said you were too old for success? Now it sounds like the dumbest thing in the world." Min-woo hugged his wife. "I'm so proud of you. You've shown everyone that true beauty and strength come from within. At the ceremony, accepting the award, Eun-ju said, "This prize is dedicated to all the women who were ever told they weren't young enough, beautiful enough, or smart enough for their dreams. Age is not a sentence, it's a resource. Every year we live gives us experience, wisdom, and self-understanding." The hall erupted in a standing ovation. Among those applauding was her mother-in-law, unable to hide her tears of pride. Another year later, Second Spring entered the European market. Eun-ju opened offices in Paris and Milan, and her cosmetics gained recognition among Western women who embraced the brand's philosophy, beauty without age limits. Changes came in her personal life too. Min-ji married a classmate and had a son, making Eun-ju a happy grandmother. Ji-ho founded his own IT company specializing in solutions for the cosmetics industry. Min-woo and Eun-ju bought a seaside home in Busan, where they planned to spend their vacations. Their marriage was an example of what true partnership should be: mutual support, respect, and love built on understanding rather than dependency. One evening, sitting on their terrace watching the sunset, Eun-ju reflected on the years behind her. 7 years ago, her world had collapsed when she found that hotel bill and a photo of her husband's young mistress. Back then, she thought her life was over. Now she understood that discovery had not been an ending, but a beginning. The beginning of a real life, where she was the heroine, not a secondary character in someone else's story. Min-woo came out onto the terrace with 2 cups of tea. "What are you thinking about, darling?" "About how sometimes the scariest events in our lives turn out to be the greatest gifts," Eun-ju replied. "If Té Jun hadn't betrayed me, I would have remained a shadow of his success. Do you think he realized his mistake? Maybe. But that no longer matters. What matters is that I realized my own strength." They sat in silence, watching the city below light up with thousands of lights. Somewhere out there was Té Jun's clinic, where he had once dreamed of ridding himself of his old and boring wife. Somewhere so he lived, who had wasted her youth chasing another man's money. Somewhere were thousands of other women who still did not know their true worth. And here, on the terrace of the house she had bought with her own money, sat Jeong Eun-ju, a successful businesswoman, a loving wife, a proud mother, and a happy woman who had finally found herself.